Us, abandoned ship. We're not caring about this car. We're thinking about the next year.
Exit clauses, yada yada yada.
Hulkenberg is the blue shell right now. Angle grinder guy, he gets a raise.
There you go.
Whoa.
He gets both salaries.
There you go.
What are they doing with the 5th and 6th seats?
Yeah, it's just Weenie Hut Formula One Junior now.
They don't fire up the same way that F1 cars do.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Tired Boys podcast for round 9 of the Formula One championship. I'm your host Justin.
I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone. It's we've had a lot to think about over the past 24 hours or so since the race. There's been a lot to talk about today. We've got Formula 3, Formula 2, Formula 1, some quick hitters. So plenty to get into. Justin, I'm surprised I'm not the one who's all flustered after the ending to yesterday's race. I feel like I would be the one to have a frog in my throat to start here.
Yeah, for sure. I have to admit, I was having a bit of a giggle when I was watching back the race. You were adamant Charles Leclerc was in the wrong, and I think you would have, died on that hill for Max at least on Sunday. And honestly, I think Max needs fans like that. So you're likely up there in the fan club, but it is good to see you, my friend. We had an exciting end to the Grand Prix, I think we could say. But yeah, excited to get into it. Excited to talk about the various races that we had. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so we'll start off with the quick hitters as usual. So we had the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix in IndyCar this week. There was also an IMSA race that I believe was there as well, so I didn't keep tabs on that one as much. But plenty of racing to take a look at from this weekend. Over in the IndyCar, though, our boy Colton Herta took pole position for the race. There were some funny moments kind of in practice, or funny, not so funny, interesting, where Will Power decided to run into the back of one of his rivals. I'm forgetting off the top of my head who it was. I think it might have been Kyle Kirkwood. And just kind of bulldozed him through to, like, he got under his tail and like physically pushed his car through past another driver to be able to get himself through, and just kind of dumped him off to the side and gave him a little ride there. So interesting, kind of funny. Will Power basically said I unintentionally went into the back of him. He was going slower, braked earlier than I expected. And at that point, he's like, well, I've already hit him. I might as well just give myself a gap here, push him through, and then dump him off to the side. So kind of amusing. The drivers all seem to be in good spirits afterwards. But the race itself went very well for Kyle Kirkwood. He got his victory here, which I believe is his 4th victory in IndyCar. All have been at street circuits, so kind of his specialty. Notably, Alex Palou not on the top step of the podium here or on the podium at all, as he unfortunately got hit by David Malukas, taken out of the race, so he did not finish after being up in contention for the majority of the race there. David Malukas finished P4, or no, sorry, David Malukas P14, so still decently high even after the contact and everything with Alex Palou. But a notable miss there for Palou this weekend.
Yeah, kind of ending his little stint, little run of dominance that he was having. Unfortunate, kind of like not really his fault, but just on those street circuits, the walls are very close. He crashed into one of the I guess I call it like a Pro-Tech barrier or whatever, like the tire things, the soft cushions around the edge of the track, crashed into there, couldn't get going again. So unfortunate for Pelot. Same race, we had another crash, like I think it was like another like 15 laps down. Ridiculous crash where a car just like loses its front right suspension, goes sliding into another, puts him into the wall. I guess that was during the race. But yeah, just wild scenes there towards the end, but unfortunate again for Pelot, having such a run of dominance be ended. But the one thing I was like, oh, there's no way like going into the weekend, I was like, oh, there's no way there's like an IndyCar race. They just had the Indy 500. There must be time off. It's like, nope. Weekend after, straight into Detroit. So I was happy to catch that race because yeah, usually tends to be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And Detroit is definitely an interesting circuit with it being a street circuit, and you do have some of those protect the tire barriers and everything, but a lot of the circuit is just super tight with cement barriers on both sides. So definitely a difficult track for a lot of the drivers, and so it's very common to have contact relatively often and have those kind of incidents during the race. But overall, not too many people DNFing and Pelot being one of them. Colton Herta, who did start on pole, finished P3, so still podium finish for him, but not quite able to make the strategy work out to keep him at the top there.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like pole for IndyCar. This is just my impression. I would need to see data. It seems like pole for IndyCar is not as strong or important as it is in Formula One. I feel like the push to pass economy makes it like not a guarantee. Where it feels like if you're on pole on a lot of circuits in Formula One, you're like definitely advantaged. But with the push to pass, it feels like it can really go either way, depending on what happens out at front, which is kind of an interesting wrinkle. What's your feeling on that?
I agree with you that pole position definitely is not as much of a guarantee as it were for as Formula One, and I think there's a number of reasons why. The push to pass is one because anyone can use it. You don't have to be in the toe of the car in front of you to within a second or anything. You can just use that kind of as you will. The other aspects though, the refueling, the pit stops, only having two different tire compounds, I think it creates a lot of variation, especially with the refueling, how much fuel you're putting in the car, how far you go, and the length of these races. There's um, a lot of just distance in general that they're covering. Typically, like 100 lap race is pretty common in IndyCar, and back markers don't have to get out of the way. So if your pit strategy puts you into a bad pit window in terms of having cars around you on track, whether you're behind back markers that you're lapping or anything like that, you could just get relatively stuck, and be kind of in an unfortunate situation. So I think there's a number of things that create that, at least ability. Like for Santino Ferrucci, he came up through the field, started down in P21 to finish P2 at the end of the race there. So pretty huge jump for him. And I think that was primarily based on the tire strategy that they went with, getting him kind of up into those right windows.
Gotcha. Okay, so not just the push to pass, definitely a factor, but also stating like because there are only two tire compounds, it's effectively like a soft and a hard. There's no intermediate or medium tire or whatever. So the tire strategy, and then like you said, the refueling, because that adds like another layer of time sink onto their stops. So okay, that makes sense. So like three primary reasons you would say. But yeah, makes sense. Fun weekend out in Detroit. Looking forward to the next race. See if Pelot can get back on that horse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure where they're at next, but I know that there's plenty of racing coming up in the near future. I'll confirm. So we've got in 2 weeks the Worldwide Technology Raceway Bomarito Automotive Group 500 in Illinois. So that'll be a an ovalish track race that they have coming up in a couple of weeks. Joseph Newgarden being the defending winner there going into this year. And I wanted to kind of continue the quick hitters into just a little fun fact about the Triple Crown. It was part of one of our questions from the hot seat last weekend. Monaco and the Indy 500 being two parts of that Triple Crown, and then Le Mans being the third portion of that. So Sauber's 2018 F1 lineup has won the Triple Crown combined. So Leclerc has won Monaco. Antonio Giovinazzi was the reserve driver who has now won the Le Mans 2023 24-hour event. And then Marcus Ericsson, the Indy 500 winner in 2022. So across that 2018 Sauber lineup from reserve to the two main drivers, they have combined for a triple crown there.
Did you do all this research? Did you connect all these dots?
No shot. Just
Okay, gotcha.
saw a tweet and I was like, oh, that's funny. Just after talking about the triple crown. I mean, timing makes sense with having Monaco Indy 500 and then Le Mans is coming up in June here, so we have that not too far out in the horizon. But yeah, it was a interesting tweet I saw and I was like, I'm gonna hold on to that one here.
That is really good. Okay, so you can piece together Triple Crown winners if you look across like teams and categories.
Well, I mean, this was all the same F1 team, all three of their drivers, their two starting drivers and the reserve who each have gotten a piece. So it was like
Okay, that's not
yeah.
bad.
So it's a little closer than just being like, well, these three random people all have won it, so boom, slap them together and call it the
Sure.
combined triple crown. They at
Okay,
least
so it's less patchwork than it sounded originally. That's so funny to think like Giovinazzi, who is just like effectively a footnote in like it's just going to be a couple of years in Formula One, but is part of like a bona fide like race winning squad. It goes to show you that performance in Formula One is not everything, and these are actually the best of the best drivers. Where it's like,
yeah.
yeah, they may not have shown anything in Formula One, but he like steps off the grid, joins another team. He's like, well, yeah, I just won Le Mans because we're insane.
Yep.
So it's fun to see where the drivers go, what they accomplish afterwards, especially when their Formula One career like wasn't the most explosive, you would say, because like it's not his fault either,
Oh
like
no.
you can just be in just like a team that isn't going to go forward or whatever. But yeah, that's really funny to think this 2018 group of drivers actually has won it. I wonder if their pins are in the mail or if anybody's going to commemorate the occasion for them.
I'm sure someone has brought it up to one of them at some point, and they've had a chuckle about it. I wouldn't be shocked at least, but yeah, not too many quick hitters today. So we'll keep it moving right along over into our feeder series section. But wait, before we do that, don't forget to like, subscribe, check us out on YouTube. Follow us on Twitch. We go live during the recording, so we are live right now. You could be watching us there. And then keep an eye out for any TikToks and shorts that are coming out as well. We will be putting out content as frequently as we can, and we appreciate you all listening.
Yeah, thank you very much for spending your time here at the Tired Boys podcast. Back to the episode.
And so, getting into the feeder series, so Formula 3, We had the sprint race and feature race here in Barcelona as well. The sprint race was a little bit chaotic to start. We had a number of the top drivers get knocked out right at the start. Kamara, the championship leader, Roman Belinsky, Stenchorn, Tramnitz, and Tappinen were all out before the end of the first lap with multiple just different incidents that caused them to go out right away, pretty much. We had another DNF of Stromstead, and so with those guys that went out, Kamara, Tramnitz, Stromstead, Tappinen are 4 of the top 5 in the championship right now. So really some strong competition that was out early in that sprint race and kind of opening the doors up a little bit with I believe it was Tramnitz and Belinsky who were the top 2 starters in that race. So the P1 and P2 starting in the sprint race, both going out right away. Definitely gave some open air for a few of the other drivers here. And we saw the Van Amersfoort drivers take advantage of that with Dominguez in P1, Ramos P2, so their drivers taking the top 2 steps on the podium, and then Nicholas Solov coming in P3.
Yeah, once that crash kind of shook out, you got to see like what all drivers were involved, and you see Kamara, Tramnitz all out. I immediately, when I'm watching, I began looking towards specifically Solov and Ramos at the time of the crash. I'm pretty sure Solov was in P5 or P6, and Ramos was in P4, I believe. So my eyes immediately turned to them. Like they're basically like up next outside of the top 3. They're the next drivers that are going to be like in contention to where if they scoop up some points, it's going to be really good. So my eyes go immediately to Solov and Ramos to see what they can get done. They keep their nose clean. They really don't lose much pace, so those two are able to battle for a bunch of positions to make it to the front. Solov not able to make as much headway as Ramos is, but as far as championship contenders, once some of those others are out, that's why I began looking to, and they did not squander their opportunity. Obviously, like you said, getting up onto the podium for both of them. So really making the most out of a tough scenario for the other drivers ahead of them, but really putting their foot down and running a really nice race.
Yeah, and so the 2 of them definitely made the most of that opportunity. And we had Dominguez finishing P1, who had been our P7 starter. So with the reverse grid, I guess he was starting in P4 there. So making up some positions, but of course 2 of the contenders in front of him going out. Going over into the feature race, we saw Nicholas Solov starting in P2 behind Kamara. So the 2 of them still at the front of the field, but Solov has some issues early, drops back, and then is kind of put into a recovery drive. I think he had contact with another driver early on. And so is able to fight his way back to P5 at the end of the day. But Kamara just lights to finish, lights to flag, goes P1 and kind of extends that lead in the F3 championship to now be pretty significant. He is just about a race win ahead of Nicholas Solov in second place there. And then the field gets a bit tighter as you start getting into those next positions in the championship.
Yeah, a couple of moments where Kamara was definitely under pressure during the race. I think some of his lead coming down to the really clean pit stop that he was given once the pit window opened up. So he didn't run into any problems, didn't run into like any cars in a bad pit window, you could say. So team giving him good opportunities, himself driving a really good race. One thing that caught my eye for the Formula 3 weekend, which was really unfortunate, new entrant into the series, Garfias. hasn't driven the other races. This was his first weekend in Formula 3. Nightmare start for his sprint race. Feature race does not get any better. Double DNF on the weekend. His crash in the feature race was like ugly. He actually like drifts back onto the track, gets hit again. So as far as like maiden weekends, Garfius will definitely be looking to just get his head down, focus on the next one out. Because yeah, for the rookie in that regard, not great. That was just more of like a lighter note. Nobody was hit, nobody was injured. So I felt like I would bring it up. But yeah, Kamara just extending his lead, looking great. So yeah, for that Formula 3 championship, heavy favorite, obviously. But depending on what opportunities Solov has, I think that's another individual who could be challenging given the right opportunities.
Yeah, and so I think that field it's gonna kind of flex and change a little bit with the distances or the points gaps, but I feel like you said that Kamara is that heavy favorite, and we'll see some of that shifting around in the field shortly behind him. But moving over into the F2 weekend, so we had another incident with Alex Dunn, and so it's it's something that I think is not a like a major concern, but just something that he will have to grow through and get a bit better at, and just be a little cleaner if he wants those opportunities in the future in Formula One or other series. But back to back weekends where he has incidents running into other drivers. He runs into the back of Victor Martins in the pit lane as he's coming through, just boils it in too hot coming into the pit lane, locks up behind him as they're slowing down for the pit entry line, and goes right into the back of him. So after having a 10 place grid drop that he was carrying over from Monaco, another 3 place grid drop in both the sprint race and the feature race from this incident at the during the practice sessions. So something to definitely be aware of. However, as we see in the sprint race, he goes from P19 all the way up to P2. Has a phenomenal race. Works the safety car works out for him towards the end of the race after Montoya and Mini, the Prima teammates, have contact. And he's able to get new soft tires on and just kind of push his way through the field there at the end, along with Richard Verschoor. They both get to take advantage of that pit stop and everything from the safety car. So very fortunate, but a pretty impressive drive from Dunn to make his way through the field, even with that safety car fortune.
Yeah, I agree, and especially for Verschoor's race, kind of coming out of nowhere to win the race. He was kind of nowhere back in P9, P8 once the cars had all spread out. But like you had said, the safety car kind of brings life back into his race. And importantly, it was the difference between like the soft tires and the hard tires. There was a significant offset that Verschoor was able to land on. So right from the get go, he just starts overtaking cars. I think he had 2 overtakes on the first lap of the restart, and then just increases position all the way through. And then yeah, like you were talking about, Alex Dunn, to my mind, because I was watching Verschoor's race, to my mind, Alex Dunn was just drafting behind him the whole time. Like every move Verschoor made, Dunn was right there. He was making the same overtakes. So effectively just like following each other up the road. So that was really exciting to watch. Crazy win from Verschoor from pretty far back, and then like you said, an insane recovery there from Dunn after the what's the word, penalties for that. So yeah, interesting sprint race in that regard, but yeah,
just happy to see that everybody gets through there pretty clean because like the other race, turn one of this track has been brutal. Lots of kind of scuffles going on there. So yeah, interesting race, but even more interesting podium, I would say.
Yeah, and so really big for Vershoren and Dunn there to pick up those points and scoop up, especially Dunn being the championship leader. Vershoren there in P2 in the championship now. So those points in the sprint race making a big difference for both of them here on the weekend. And then in the feature race, we see Arvid Lindblad on pole position take that pole to flag, similar to the F3 race. It's really that it seems to be if there's not an incident out front here in Spain, that kind of that clean air and all makes a big difference. We see that in the F1 race as well with Oscar Piastri. So Lindblad staying out of trouble, clean start, and just taking it all the way through. We had Montoya in P2, and then Vershoren getting on the podium again in P3. So a really huge weekend for him. Arvid Lindblad picks up 28 points on the weekend with that feature race win. But even with P3 in the feature race, Vershoren ends up with 25 points on the weekend. So barely losing out and staying ahead in the championship of Lindblad. Just with having a really consistent weekend, getting that double podium.
Yeah, and a bounce back from Lindblad, taking the contact early in the sprint race, dropping him down the field. That's a big bounce back in my mind. Able to just come through the next day, just you know wash it off like it never happened and perform, get that victory. So that's really good to see from Lindblad. So yeah, some solid competition between the two of them.
Yeah, and so with Dunn, Vershoren, and Lindblad being the top in the championship, it's by no means over. Lindblad jumped up. I think Vershoren maybe as well had jumped up above Jack Crawford and Lucas Browning, who Lucas Browning had a pretty tough weekend this week. I believe he DNF'd in the feature race there. No, I finished at the back of the grid after some trouble in the feature race. So definitely a weekend to forget. Fornaroli as well had a tough weekend, getting 2 points in the sprint race, no points in the feature race. So the two of them kind of drifting back a little bit, but that pack is still super tight. Alex Dunn with 87 points, down to Fornaroli with 66 in P6. So a really, really tight field with less than a race win in between the top six. So really, really competitive F2 season, and it will be interesting kind of continuing forward to see how that shakes out. We'll be at back in a few weeks when we go to Austria and the Austrian Grand Prix. We'll have F2 and F3 there as well. So a little time off before we get to see this championship fight continue.
Yeah, and it's exciting because they have both the sprint and the feature races at, I'm pretty sure each like event that they go to, there is a good opportunity for points, like a good amount of points each weekend. So we can still see some big swings between the top competitors. So with so many points available, we can see a lot of drivers getting into the fight. So yeah, I'll be looking forward for after the summer break to get back into some Formula 2 and Formula 3 coverage. As for now, I think we should move on and get into the main race, the main category.
Sounds good. So we'll start off. Do we have the hot seat for this week as well?
You know it, sir.
All right, so let's get into the hot seat, or I guess I'll get into the hot seat. I'm hoping to bounce back, like Arvid Lindblad, with a better performance this week here in Barcelona.
Quality segue. I love to hear it. For those of you following along at home, we've got 5 questions, 3 multiple choice answers. We're going to put Aaron in the hot seat and see how well he knows the Spanish Grand Prix. So, question number 1. Which year did Catalunya begin hosting the Spanish Grand Prix on the Formula One calendar? Was it A, 1991, B, 1981, or C, 2001?
I said I was going to study, and then I didn't. Sounds like high school all over again.
Oh
I'm going to
no.
go with C, 2001.
Damn, son. Wrong. It is 1991. It's been on the calendar for a decent amount of time, so
It's a
we'll
good stretch.
correct. All right, so we'll move on here. Question number 2. In 1996, this popular Formula One driver took his maiden victory at Catalunya on a day with torrential downpour. Was it A, Damon Hill, B, Michael Schumacher, or C, Mika Hakkinen? Maiden victory.
I'm going to go with Mika Hakkinen.
Incorrect, sir. It was
Brutal.
your boy Michael Schumacher in a Ferrari.
Okay. Should have
Okay.
yeah, this is a tough one this week for me. Starting
This
out.
is this is pretty tough. There's less joke answers. There's less gimme answers. It's more akin to like a real quiz. So question number 3 here. Since 2003, this driver has been drawing massive crowds on his way to 2 victories here across his career, becoming one of 2 Spanish drivers ever to win here, closing an almost 100-year drought. Who is this driver? Is it A, Carlos Sainz? Is it B, Fernando Alonso, or is it C, Marc Genet?
B, Fernando Alonso.
You nailed it. Our favorite rookie driver that's ever come into the sport, Fernando Alonso. All right, we got 1 right. Let's finish strong here. We got 2 left. Come on now, bud. All right, question number 4. Catalunya hosts many different events and categories. Some, like MotoGP, use the alternate layout of the track, which adds a chicane. In between which turns can this chicane be added in? Is it A, between turns 9 and 10? Is it B, between turns 5 and 7? Or is it C, between 13 and 14? 13 and 14 is the final sector, the last 2 turns.
Gotcha. I'm gonna go with. Can you reread the answers?
Between turns 9 and 10, between turns 5 and 7, or between turns 13 and 14.
There you go. A, between turns 9 and 10.
Incorrect, sir. It's between 13 and 14. I was trying to lead you there.
Yeah, I should have taken the hint.
All good, all good. Number 5, you know you can rely on it. We've got a max fact for you, so hopefully we'll be able to land correctly. All right, question number 5. This circuit was again the site of history in 2016, where 2 battling Mercedes gave way for another maiden victory in Formula One. Who was this driver? Was it A, Daniel Ricciardo? Was it B, Valtteri Bottas? Or was it C, Max Verstappen?
It was C, Max Verstappen.
Let's go.
Youngest F1 winner.
And I didn't realize it in the moment as to why you would have like just very quickly this like Mercedes crash in your mind. It's like, oh, because it's not the Mercedes crash, it's the Mercedes crash giving way for the first Max win. That's why it sticks out in your brain. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
I mean, also just that's a pretty pretty big like incident in Formula One's like history, I guess, between
Sure.
with Lewis and Nico colliding there. That was one of the um I mean, I've read a lot of different things about it over time. I believe that was the incident that Toto had both drivers go to the factory in Silverstone and apologize to all of the staff there and everything. It gets replayed just about every time we go to the Spanish Grand Prix. So definitely one that sticks out. And of course, good fortune for Max there as well to take home his maiden victory.
I guess I never realized the connection between that crash and Max's first win is that they were like the one in the same race. So I guess that was the like aha moment for me. But hopefully we have an aha moment at our next hot seat. Maybe we can get one or two more on the board.
Hopefully.
So yeah, looking forward to that one. But Aaron, I'm interested in getting into the conversation about the race here. So tell me, who was one of your winners on the weekend?
So my first winner on the weekend is Isaac Hadjar. He has just been a standout rookie so far across the year. In my opinion, kind of potential. Like I would say, he's leading the rookie of the year competition at this point in time. Points in the last three places. He's up into P9 in the drivers' standings in the Racing Bull. He is ahead of Yuki in the Red Bull. He's ahead of Liam, his teammate. So just having a really solid year. He's also the only rookie who has not been knocked out in Q1 of qualifying at all this year. So just a very impressive start to his Formula One career, and then a great weekend for him. He qualifies qualifies in P9. And then is able to bring it home all the way up to P7. So just a really solid finish for him. Some great points for the Racing Bulls, and he doesn't just he seems to be able to put the qualifying together and then just be very consistent in the race. So I feel like he's maximizing those opportunities here in the Racing Bull.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good pick, I would say. Kind of underrated depending on like what races and what you're watching on a weekend. But yeah, Isaac Hadjar I think had a really good performance. The thing that stood out to me was not just where he finished, but also the Q3 berth. So doing a lot of the work on a Saturday, I think, which is important. So having the pace over one lap, but then, like you said, also having the consistency over the long runs to kind of hold those positions as well. So yeah, I think that's a really good shout. My first winner here on the weekend, very obvious, but I think they did a great job. Especially Oscar is himself and McLaren, seeing his specifically Oscar, the pace in practice 1 and 2, not really anywhere, and then practice 3, really able to improve, ends at the top of the board, and then qualifying. Not only not only is he driving quicker than his teammate in that final Q3 sector, he was on his final lap setting purple sectors all the way through all three sectors. So ramping up into the waning moments of qualifying even. Start was really good in the race compared to Lando. Lando kind of caught sleeping. Oscar had a really good start as well. So I just think a bunch of stuff that they did well over the weekend, but didn't have it hooked up from the start. So I had to do a little improvement. And I think my brain gives a little more points there where it's like, well, they weren't perfect the whole time. So I guess that, increases their rating or whatever. And just probably contributing more points than anything was Lando's jokes post race. He was killing me in the post race conference where when asked about like do they think Max was in the right or whatever, Lando's response is damn, well, Oscar told me some crazy opinions on that. So, and then he passes it off to Oscar. Oscar says something like very just even, no hot take at all. And when he passes it back to Lando, Lando then goes, "Damn, well, that's not what he told me." But and then so you're just like, "Oh my god, he was just trolling Oscar while like kind of poking fun at Max." So I thought that was funny. His Mario Kart joke was really funny. He's like, I've done that before too in Mario Kart. It's like boom, roasted. So I think not only did they win on track, I think they won in the meme department as well. And like I said, that probably counts for more. So that's why I picked them.
Yeah, definitely a boost to the points in the standings to have those memes as well. So definitely just running away with the humor and the championship at this point in time. But no, Oscar and Lando both had a really solid weekend. Lando loses out to Max, which is not uncommon at the start of the Spanish Grand Prix with the long start down to the first turn where Max is able to get the slipstream. That's frequently something that we've seen in previous years. But another I might have to switch before too long from my Max facts. So I'll start it off with an Oscar fact here for you. But Oscar is now one of 3 McLaren drivers all time who has been able to put together 8 podiums in a row, alongside Ayrton Senna and Lewis Hamilton as the other two who were able to get to that point. I'll have to do a little more research to see if either of them had gotten to that 9 in a row podium streak with the McLaren team, but really an impressive run from Oscar. He's had some impressive consistency as well as pace over the past stretch, and of course that's why he is leading in the championship. He expands that lead from 3 points back up to 10 points with this win, putting that gap back to Lando and of course to Max a bit wider. So yeah, I'm with you there for a really nice weekend for the McLaren cars. They definitely are the strongest in the field, even with the new technical directive. They didn't seem to be heavily affected by that front wing um, new flex test that the FIA implemented. So not as big of a um, shift in the competition as some people may have expected.
Yeah, I feel like based on what I was hearing from all of the teams, I don't feel or it didn't feel like the teams feel like it created any meaningful difference at all. The technical directive for the front wing. So I thought that was a bit like unfortunate. But at the same time, it's like, well, if it's kind of the same for everybody, then it's just like, it's like net zero or whatever. So yeah, just a something I thought I'd throw in there.
Yeah, it just I guess depends how much the different teams were using that flexibility. And it'll be still interesting to see over the upcoming races because we don't know if maybe this is a track specific thing where that
Mm.
is not as major of an effect on this circuit, but maybe it will be at a circuit that has slower corners or maybe a little more high speed circuit, things like that where this has a lot of those medium speed and kind of turns throughout the circuit, with some of those higher speed as well. But uh, we'll keep an eye on it. But I really think it was overhyped with what the expectation was for that.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but someone who's not overhyped, who I am hyped for, my second winner of the week is Nico Hulkenberg. P5 finish after Max gets his penalty at the end of the race. Um, he had a really solid qualifying as well. Or sorry, a really poor qualifying. Gabriel Bortoleto had a solid qualifying getting into Q2. But for Nico Hulkenberg, P16 from his qualifying, and then able to take advantage, move up the field, and get himself in a good position for that final safety car, getting onto the soft tires, and passing Lewis Hamilton on track, on pace, and everything to jump up into P5. A really big weekend for Nico, and then of course Sauber by proxy with getting that 10-point swing, jumping up over Alpine and Aston Martin in the championship now. So just a huge weekend for Nico to be able to pull those points in.
Yeah, I think one of his best results in the near like recently, and then just like without reference, that's got to be the best result for Kick Sauber as well, right?
Yeah, it's got
Just
to
like so
be, and
far.
it at least in the past couple of years, 100%. I
Right,
mean, last year they
right.
didn't get any points until the last race of the season. I think they picked up one. And then this year, Nico's gotten a few points, but definitely nothing that high.
Yeah, so a standout performance, not just from Hulkenberg, but for Kick Stauber as well. A bit of a landmark event in that regard. I love the call from Alex Jakes during the race from the F1 broadcast, talking about a Sauber in the wheel tracks of a Ferrari. Like, who would have expected that? I love that call from him. That was pretty great. And I'll just use this opportunity to shoehorn in a conversation about the broadcast. The F1 TV broadcast is actually something I've been enjoying like way more. I think Alex Jakes may be an acquired taste that I have now acquired because I kind of enjoy his commentating now. So he's definitely eased on me. Someone who I was very critical of was David Coulthard. I know I had a bunch of episodes previously where I was like, oh, he was naked, what a bad guy, and like all of this stuff. Just, just not appreciating, I guess, like what he could bring to the broadcast. But the more I listen to him, the more I really enjoy David Coulthard's commentating. So something that I would like to give my flowers, where previously I know I've been critical of them. So I just want to make a note. I think I've changed my tune in that regard. But yeah, back to your Hulkenberg point. Alex Jakes, a Sauber in the in the wheel tracks of a Ferrari was wonderful to hear, and watch him, like you said, overtake Lewis Hamilton. You're like, what the heck is happening?
Yeah, it was a crazy and frantic end to the race there. But Nico definitely just took advantage of the good safety car window and everything to put himself in that position. But a strong race up until that point as well. And yeah, I'd say Alex Jakes and David Coulthard, they have their moments when you're like you can be a little skeptical of them, but I overall enjoy listening to them. I think they have a pretty good broadcast. Coulthard has some pretty good insights, so I'm definitely a fan of the F1 broadcast as well. But why don't you go ahead and hit me with your second winner this week?
I love the spirit bomb that Fernando Alonso received from the crowd. Effectively, an Aston Martin that's been like nowhere the rest of the year just gets to show up in Spain, and just by pure love of the game and for our boy Alonso, the crowd wills him forward and gives him like an extra 50 miles per hour to help him get around the racetrack. His qualifying was really surprising. Getting into Q3, or I don't know if it was Q3. It might have just been Q2. Either way, a P9 finish after overtaking everybody on that outside line around turn 3. Like every time he was overtaking, the camera would cut to him just far wide around the outside of that turn 3. Just um, doing what he does best. So I really enjoyed watching his race, and just thought that was great. Something you hope happens at every home race, but rarely does. And I think Alonso got the crowd love.
Yeah, and he did have a Q3 appearance, and so that was
Okay, so I was
a
right.
yeah, so really solid Saturday for him. But Sunday was looking a little bit tougher, dropping back a little bit to start the race, but yeah, like you said, the crowd and the home Grand Prix. I think after all the pain he's been through so far this season, someone had to throw him a bone. But yeah, a really nice finish for him. Being up in P9, picking up a couple of points there for the Aston Martin team, who he was the only driver in the race on the weekend. And we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on with Lance Stroll in a bit. But I'll lead us here into the losers section of the episode. So my I'll save the best for last. So my first loser is Williams. After so far a pretty strong start to the season and looking really good at a number of circuits, this week they just didn't look to be really anywhere with the pace. Alex Albon has multiple incidents at the start or early on in the race, losing his front wing twice, I believe. And they end up boxing and retiring the car. Carlos Sainz having some struggles as well. I believe he had some contact that just caused some issues throughout the race for him, with some damage to the car. And so just overall, a tough weekend for the Williams team with Carlos finishing P14, Albon DNFing. So a really tough week after some pretty impressive performances and good points up until this point of the season. That's only Albon's second time not being in the points so far this year.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with the Williams points. It was unfortunate watching Albon's race, especially because like the errors that he made, yeah, they were like tight on track battles, but it felt like the contact was avoidable. Maybe he was not aware of like maybe how close his competitors were, whatever, but it seemed like the contact was kind of on his end, which is a bit unfortunate. However, there's the positives are like he didn't ruin anybody else's race or was like any like more serious damage or injury or anything like this. But yeah, not the weekend you won from Albon, somebody who previously I'd call him like consistent and things like this. These are not the really the performances you expect from that. So yeah, I had Williams as one of my losers as well for the weekend. I pretty much agree with you there.
Yeah, so definitely a tough one there. And for my second loser this weekend, I'm gonna probably take us into a pretty fun conversation for you over there. But I have Red Bull with primarily Max being the loser on the weekend there for the team, but just a number of components that I felt kind of combined into wanting to have the team there. And so it starts off with Yuki's qualifying. He qualifies in P20. They have him start from the pit lane after making some setup changes overnight. It and so this is where you kind of get into the team section of that, where Pierre Wash, the technical director for Red Bull, said that they had tried a different setup with Yuki's car to see if they could get some performance, and just did not go anywhere in the qualifying. Yuki even felt like he had driven like a very clean, strong lap and is down in P20 at the end of it. So some interesting decision making, setting Yuki up on the back foot for the entire weekend moving forward. And so qualifying P20 is able to make it up a little bit further during the race and finish in P13, but just a tough weekend overall. And then the other team decision making with Max's pit stop. This is one of those kind of hindsight is 2020 things. I think they had the right strategy going with the 3-stop race. I think they were on the fastest strategy with that, and would have put Max in position to potentially win there had there not been Kimi Antonelli's car dying there on the circuit to bring out the safety car. But the decision there at that point in my mind, I was, and I think Max, you heard on the team radio, was similarly shocked to be brought in and put onto a set of hard tires. His soft tires were about 6 laps old. They could have left him out on track on used soft tires and had track position to be up in P1. And at that point, you most likely just have both the McLarens on fresh soft tires get past you in that last 6 laps with how long the safety car stayed out there circulating. So I think in 6 laps, Max probably is able to hold on to the podium in that position, not be put in a bad spot. But kind of bringing that all the way around now to Max and his part in this um, in this loser section for me. Um, he and this hasn't happened in a while. He has been pretty even keeled, I think, across the season, understanding that like he's doing the maximum with the car that they have, trying to do the best he can, but there's kind of a limit with what the car can do for him at the moment. But this was one of those like I believe it was Austria last year with the battle with Lando. He has the really bad pit stop. He's fuming on the radio as he's leaving the pits, and then he and Lando have their incident going down to turn one. And so I think this is one of those Max loses his head a little bit. He's on the soft tires, the safety or on the hard tires, the safety car is circulating. The tires are ice cold by the end of the safety car, and he is just a sitting duck with no track position and everything to kind of lose at that point. Um, and then of course the two bits of contact that he takes before the incident with George Russell where he kind of loses his head. He and Leclerc bump on the main straight. George pushes him out wide, which the stewards said they were not going to make Max give the place back or give him a penalty. They did feel he was forced off the track there by George Russell. So kind of all fair and square there. Um, but yeah, the second contact with George Russell, half I'd say half intentional, half just really cold hard tires. But either way, there's no need. He should have just let George through, continued on his way, taken the P5, and just kind of suffered through it and go back to the garage and talk through the decision making with the team. But instead, loses his head, hits George, 10-second penalty, finishes P10, picking up 1 point while his title contenders kind of run off into the sunset there with the McLaren. So overall, I mean, there was a lot that I was frustrated with Red Bull throughout the weekend. But up until that safety car in the race, I was actually pretty happy with what Max's race was looking like. But it can all come crashing down very quickly.
Yeah, and we know if Max isn't having a good time, Aaron's not having a good time. If Max isn't happy, Aaron is not happy. I'm just curious, have you like do you see the contact with Leclerc differently? Or
Well, and I think after like we talked about it a little bit more in the Discord, I do feel like it was more on Leclerc. I don't think it was intentional by any means. I just think he had set his line and was drifting out kind of further. I didn't see any like major steering adjustments or anything on the onboard videos. But he knew Max was there and he is on the inside line. So I don't feel like there's a need to kind of drift out towards the outer edge, but I will say he kept his line and they just kind of the lines just came together. So I don't think it was an intentional thing. I think it would be a racing incident. Do I feel like Leclerc probably could have avoided it easier where Max has the edge of the track on his left-hand side? Yeah, but that's racing sometimes and that happens. George, on the other hand, I think was at turn one trying to take advantage of Max having that wobble and being on the cold tires. And again, kind of one of those instances where if George had been a little bit more patient maybe with his move, he's 100% getting by Max. Instead, he tries to force his way through at the earliest opportunity to try and chase after Leclerc and forces Max off there. Again, a racing incident. They were going to call it a wash, but I felt like that was a little bit just a little bit too I don't can't think of the right word, but I think George was trying to take advantage a little too early, just not being patient enough. Similar to what I've said with Lando in previous times, where he's not setting up his move necessarily. He's just kind of sending it on occasion in previous instances. So yeah, I think it's just a tough way for it to go, and pretty disappointing for Max to lose out. I think the 10-second penalty was probably a little bit light if you're gonna say that he intentionally hit George. Again, I think it's partially the cold hard tires as well that he really didn't have much grip. So I think they probably gave him the benefit of the doubt. It's a little different than I saw a lot of the discourse online talking about Schumacher and how he was disqualify Max from the championship because Michael Schumacher was disqualified from the championship for intentionally intentionally ramming another driver and being real like over the top with it. Like George wasn't taken out of the race. It was more comparable to when Sebastian Vettel went into the side of Lewis Hamilton after Hamilton brake checked him under a safety car in previous years. They gave him a 10-second stop go, and that was under safety car being like it like drives up next to him, wheels to wheels, just gives him a little like bump, like, hey man, don't brake check me. That's unsafe. It's unsportsmanlike. 10-second stop go penalty. So I feel like this is the punishment kind of fits the crime here for Max, but it's just a sloppy decision when he could have easily kept himself a bit closer in the title fight by just keeping a cool head.
Yeah, I would have to agree with a lot of that. I think the large dude, it's like a Grand Canyon between Max and Yuki. Obviously, this weekend, you know, you factored into like car parts, the Park Ferme thing. Like he's he's in a really tough spot, but I think you can look at that as like a struggle for Red Bull that rears itself again this weekend, and it's like even more significant than it usually is. So yeah, I think that's a big factor. The max penalty gets them max like he actually gets points on his license. He has 11 points on his license, so he's like close to a race ban in that regard, because they give him the points on his license. I don't think it's like too light or whatever. I think it's fine. Overall, I dislike seeing the like, you know, Alex Brundle put it like this, the red mist descending over Max's eyes, and you can just feel it. Like you can tell in the radio messages, and then
very shortly after there'll be some type of, brake locking moment and slide into somebody. So unfortunately, this is a little bit par for the course for Max's racing. We hear from George Russell in the media pen afterwards. He said, "Hey, that's just how he likes to go racing. If that's the case, well, I mean, he ended up P10, I ended up P3, so like he really only hurt himself in that regard. And when nobody else gets taken out, when nobody's injured, that's ultimately what you can just chalk it up to is like, yeah, he hurts himself more than anybody in this scenario. So it's kind of like, yeah, he gets his just desserts. He behaves unsportsmanlike, well, there you go. It's not like he gets handed a win then afterwards, and like rewarded for bad behavior kind of thing. So do we have to crucify him for it? Probably not. The race strategy angle for Red Bull, I think that's really tough because they didn't have the option of tires, but you feel like you're stuck like if you don't pit anyway, like everybody else is going to pit, everybody else is going to be on fresh tires. You almost feel like it's a lose-lose scenario no matter what you do if
And it
you don't
is,
have
yeah.
like that tire option. So from that angle, that's just tough. That comes down to like tire allocation and if anything mistakes made earlier in the weekend, like on a practice session or a quali session or whatever it is. So I think a lot of this stuff just piling up to an unfortunate race for Max. The thing that like this is where I'll like really raise the gripe. It's afterwards where he won't take responsibility for his actions and he like weirdly puts it on the like rules directives of like of our boy MBS where he's like, "Oh, it doesn't matter anyway. Like I can't say anything about it." It's like, "Well, that's a bit disingenuous because he could be self-critical. He could say, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that, this, that, and the third." But he is very quick to hide behind the like, "Oh, well, I can't say anything anyway because like I'll get hung out." I think ultimately what people are looking for in those moments is just for you to, in the moment, admit you were wrong and say, like, you just won't go racing like that in the future. I think that's all people really want in those moments. And he does this, like, really boneheaded thing of, like, well, it doesn't even matter anyway. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could own up to it a little bit, but then you're also putting yourself at risk in a number of ways. If you're like, yeah, I hit him on purpose, then you potentially are opening yourself up for a lot more potential penalties, fines, things like that. So I think the not talking about it is in my opinion better than in previous instances. We see a lot of the drivers just going hard defending themselves like, no, it wasn't me, that guy's in the wrong and this and that. I've complained about George Russell doing that, where anytime he gets incident, it's the other guy's fault and everything. This time it was, but but I mean, I think Max is just up until that point has had a really strong race and everything, and then of course that's going to be the only thing that anyone wants to talk to him about afterwards. But also I saw in some of the other interviews, his interview with Sky Sports F1, he did talk a little bit more about just kind of how the team and probably no one quite expected the tire warm up for the hard tires to be that brutal and for those tires to be like ice cold. He was like, the tires really, I couldn't do anything on them. And so I think he in that way is like, yeah, like I that idea is like, yeah, maybe I could have been a little bit more careful with George going past me, but also I one shouldn't have even had to let him pass because the stewarding decision, they said they wouldn't have given him a penalty for that, and then the cold tires just not being able to turn in as easily. Still sloppy, still unnecessary and could have easily been avoided by him. But I think in some of the other interviews and things that I saw, he does kind of own up to it. He's just like, I can't say, I can't disagree with anything, or even I think he feels if he tries to kind of put any blame elsewhere, then he might be being critical of the stewarding decisions where they feel like, well, we took everything into account, and he's like, I don't know if you did necessarily, and then all of a sudden he gets whacked for that too. Um, I don't know. It's a tough spot to be in, to be interviewed right after the race, right after those heated moments. So I'm not gonna hold that against him too much. But I don't expect to hear much about it from him in the future either. He'll be probably pretty head down and want to look forward if anyone asks him about it in the upcoming race.
Well, and that's where I agree with you. Like, he should. Like, at a certain point, if the media is still asking, I mean, especially we're about to go on summer break. If anybody is bringing this up after the summer break, it's like, okay, bro, just let the kid live, right? Like, we all make mistakes. I would agree that I think that's ridiculous, but there is there is this feeling where
I'm
man,
not
yeah, I'm trying
I'm
to
not
like
disagreeing with you entirely. Like, yeah, there's a way that he could definitely like discuss it and um not be critical of like of other things. He could say, yeah, I had really brutal tire warm up. I was frustrated in the moment and my racing got sloppy. You could say that, and that's not saying like I intentionally ran into George. That's not saying like that the stewards made the wrong decision. And it's still kind of giving some sort of answer to it. It also, I think, opens the door for them to just kind of try and push for more answers, and that's what the reporters are going to do. It's their job to try and get the sound bites and clips and the information from the drivers. But I think it was one of those things that he probably was like, I just want to put this behind me, and
of course.
yeah. So
Of
I
course. And
I
that's
agree.
and
I
that's
think I
fair.
think he kind of uh it's an easy scapegoat option to just blame the regulations.
Yes, thank you. That's kind of the concept that I was trying to get to. Yes, he's quick to scapegoat when there would be like maybe some diplomatic route that he could take. He's just quick to escape. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. That's kind of the angle that I was shooting for. That's
Yeah.
how it feels. It feels like there's like some personal vendetta between him and MBS, like he's the only driver that's like making comments like this. So I
Yeah.
understand that he had a tough time. But yeah, overall, just a weekend to forget, I imagine, for Max. Just another, just add it to the list of bad behavior from, hot-headed Max Verstappen. We gotta be careful around this guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. There's been plenty of drivers over time that have had similar tempers and taken out their frustrations in a number of ways. You can look at Vettel, you can look at Senna, you can look at Schumacher, I mean some legends of the sport, and part of it is that it's the passion that they have that kind of can also go to the negative side of that passion with being having a temper and everything. So definitely, yeah, a weekend to forget overall with Red Bull only scooping up a single point there. on the weekend and dropping down into P4 in the constructors standings behind Ferrari, who made a big leap, and then Mercedes in P3.
Big shifts in the championship, man, and that's what the weekend's like, where you don't get points. You really feel it, man. You really feel
Yeah.
it, and I feel like there are going to be big repercussions from this weekend for Red Bull, and that's kind of ultimately what it is, man. Like, no punishment is going to be more than like what they put on themselves for the lack of results here for this weekend. So yeah, we just hope these moments are minimized, because like you said at the kind of beginning of this segment, we have not seen moments like this out of Max as much as maybe we once did, like when he was a younger driver. So these events becoming like few and farther between, and also not as much of these like flashpoints. So overall, he is becoming more of a mature driver. It's just, unfortunate that his red mist comes down a little stronger than others. But yeah, moving forward, I'm sure things will be fine. The conversation that I thought was interesting was the one around Lance Stroll and him withdrawing from a race. Because to my mind, like, I didn't even know that was allowed. I didn't even know you could withdraw. I thought if you were healthy, you had to be in that car driving.
Well, and technically he's not healthy based on what they were saying. And so unfortunately, because he did the qualifying, they're not allowed to substitute anyone into the car after the qualifying session. Um but they the Aston Martin team said that he has been having some issues with pain in his hand and wrist that he had broken pretty severely. I think it was 2 years ago now, where he had surgery and was doing crazy PT just to get back in the car before the start of the season. Um, so the same wrist having issues. I think the kind of interesting part of this is when did these start? We haven't really heard anything about it. We haven't seen phenomenal performances from Lance, but the Aston Martin car has not been anywhere in most of the races. But apparently, Lance lost his temper after qualifying when he finished half a second back from Fernando in the qualifying session in Q2. He apparently broke some things in the garage and was yelling at some of the different team members and whatnot. So they said that the injury to his wrist and his moment of lost temper after qualifying are not related, but you have to wonder if maybe with the frustration, maybe battling this injury and all, that he was just like, I'm out this weekend. I'm playing the medical card and just uh sitting this one out instead of going and trying to duke it out with an injury. Like I'm not gonna assume that the injury's fake or that he just hurt himself freaking out after qualifying, but it's definitely interesting because he did undergo a procedure to try and help his wrist injury. And so he may potentially be out for his home race at the Canadian Grand Prix. We'll wait and see what happens there. But if that would be the case, and this is kind of the other interesting component of it, our boy Felipe Dragovich, the reserve driver who is supposed to be racing in the Le Mans 24 hours, said he would prioritize that F1 drive at the Canadian Grand Prix over the 24 hours of Le Mans, which I think is a wild decision after all the preparation and time that goes into preparing for that, along with the team nature of that. Like you're one of three drivers. I'm sure they have reserve drivers for that as well, but um, that could have been a great opportunity for him to kind of have that full drive, and now he's considering just hopping in for one race just to uh, show what he can do out on the circuit.
I hope that whatever decision he makes, he does not get burned like one way or the other. I hope no matter what decision he makes, he is still like able to have a drive in one way or another. Because ultimately all he is doing is just trying to support the team that he's employed by. So hopefully these interests do not collide in some unfortunate way. Because yeah, everything that we've seen from Felipe Drugovich seems like a good lad, and I would not want a choice like this to cause like significant ripples down the line, especially for the ever driving Lance Stroll. I would hate to hear of like Felipe Drugovich's career ending for the ever driving Lance Stroll. That would be awful.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he obviously he wants to have that opportunity to drive. He hasn't had
Mhm.
any races in Formula One. He hasn't had a super sub opportunity like Ollie Behrman did last year or anything like that. And so I think on the other side of the coin, like yeah, you get to show what you can do out there, but what if you just have a really brutal weekend like you were saying it could um especially with how the Aston Martin car has struggled. I feel like you could easily be written off there, depending on how that goes when driving in the 24 hours of Le Mans would be a pretty awesome opportunity. So I don't know what I would do if I was in that position. It sounds like his dream is to drive in Formula One, and if that's the case, then hey, more power to him with making that decision. But by no means would I want to be in his spot there.
Yeah, definitely not envious of that choice. I just hope that if he does get the drive for the Canadian Grand Prix, that is a sub that I will be rooting hard for. I'm hoping he either has a really good showing or gets cut a really good break, right, where he's able to show some really solid potential. Because yeah, he's been waiting in the wings for a while, patiently. So yeah, this opportunity hopefully will be a decent one for him, and he doesn't have some insane opportunity cost, right?
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to wait and see how Lance's recovery goes to know exactly what's gonna shake out. It is 2 weeks out, so it's possible that Lance is good to go and they know he'll be back in the car early on. I think the potentially worst opportunity or worst situation for Dragovich would be for him to decide that he's going to take the F1 opportunity and then last minute Lance is like, "Oh, I'm good," and he doesn't get to drive either. I think that would be kind of the worst situation potentially, but um just hoping the best for whatever pans out for him because like you said, good lad. He's been very pleasant to hear on the broadcast a number of times, and I think he's someone who deserves an opportunity to be out there at some point in time to just show what he can do, whether it's a long stint or just a quicker opportunity there in Formula One.
Yeah, here's the less sunny angle of this story. I have a feeling this will be his last window into Formula One. Like, if this does not go well, I imagine his windows are closed. That's kind of what it feels like. Like he's been reserve driver for a while, minimal opportunities. This isn't even like a guaranteed thing. So yeah, I have a feeling that this will be significant in some way or another.
Yeah. So we'll wait and see how that goes over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, definitely an interesting story to keep tabs on. Just a couple other notes that I had for the race here in Spain. Gabriel Bortoleto, a really nice race, P12 finish. So one of the stronger finishes that he's had across the year. Unfortunately, still no points, but the Sauber's only been in the points twice so far this year with Hulkenberg. So a solid qualifying, a nice finish for him. And then Leclerc as well, he kind of put himself in that position we've seen George Russell put himself in a number of times, being there to pick up the pieces or to be the next one up if something happens. In that P4 position, gets by Max on the safety car restart, and is kind of gifted a safety car podium to some extent. But really nice way to bag some good points, and for him and just the drivers and the Ferrari team in the constructors standings, they picked up a good haul of points there. 15 for Leclerc, 8 for Lewis Hamilton, so 23-point swing, and they're now 6 points up on Mercedes, and then jumped ahead of Red Bull as well. So a big weekend for the Ferrari team there.
Yeah, especially like you were saying for Leclerc's race, they realized early on that Leclerc was going to have more pace going into that stint. So very quickly, once Leclerc got onto the back of Hamilton, they swapped the cars and let Charles like get on down the road. So I thought that was pretty solid. Something maybe you wouldn't see all the time from Ferrari. Maybe they may have to check a few more times, with the team. But yeah, I thought good team orders coming in pretty quickly, like once they had information, and then made the swap happen and let him get down the road. So yeah, I think a team helped podium in that regard for Leclerc. And yeah, making headway in the championship. So I was happy to see a drive like that from the Ferraris.
Yeah, and definitely a good weekend. Lewis was struggling much more than Leclerc kind of throughout the entire weekend. He talked about the rear tires just not really giving as much grip as he was hoping. And even on the restart, as we saw, Nico Hulkenberg having a bit better pace there. Getting a little better tire warm up. So probably not the most exciting race for Lewis, but still bagging some solid points on the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Trying to think if there was anything else. We talked about Isaac Hadjar. He was your winner. I just have a note here. The Q3 entry, the solid battles on track, solid points on the weekend. He was just somebody I had another note for. Mercedes avoiding double disaster, I guess. Kimmy having the engine failure. Thank gosh George didn't get taken out of the race for that contact. You've seen people get taken out for probably much less even, especially on those like wheel to side contacts because you have all
Yeah.
the really sharp bits on the edge. So yeah, I think lucky for Mercedes that it definitely could have been worse for them in that regard. But other than that, I don't really have anything like really meaningful to add here to the end of the conversation.
No, I think that that kind of wraps things out here for the Spanish Grand Prix at the Circuit Barcelona Catalunya. So very eventful end to the race, and up until that point, pretty interesting race in my opinion with the tire strategies and everything we were seeing. Of course, I was following on Red Bull primarily, and they had the only differing tire strategy it seemed. So that was kind of kept it a little more interesting at the front of the field. But to end the day, we had Oscar Piastri taking another win for the year. I believe that's his fourth win of the year. Lando Norris P2, Charles Leclerc P3 to wrap out the podium.
Yeah, solid stuff from the McLaren drivers, notably for future Spanish Grand Prix. I believe this is the end of the contract for
Yep.
Catalunya. So we will be heading to the Madring here in 2026, a street circuit that will be in Madrid, which will be the home of future Spanish Grand Prix. I'm likely going to hate saying that, the Madring.
I'm just gonna call it the Mad Ring.
Okay, I mean that's not bad.
It's a little bit better than Madring, but I Madring sounds more like it's like Madrid, so I feel like Mad Ring is just it's a little more fun. It's a little more spicy. Um
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. So we'll have the next race in 2 weeks' time at the Canadian Grand Prix. So looking forward to that. But Justin, why don't we head on down to the cool down lap here?
Let's do it. We've got Rose, Thorn, and Seed for the listeners here this week. Would you like me to go through mine first?
Sure, have at it.
All right, man. So my rose here for the week, I realized my reading skills have significantly deteriorated. I probably have a reading level of like a first grader now. So instead of just like listening to everything, I've began reading more articles and pieces in fields and things that interest me. One such thing that I've been reading from author Kyla Scanlon. She's like an economist, I guess you could say. A bunch of her pieces that she's come out with recently have been very thought provoking and interesting, and giving me just some new ideas about what's going on in the world around us. So I've been enjoying learning how to read again. That's been very fun. My thorn here for the week, I had a bit of a snafu when my Bitdefender was running out. I had to renew my internet security. Basically, ran into a bit of a problem there that made me rethink some subscriptions, logins, some things like that. So I've been doing like some organizing. Did I tell you about? Did I tell you about Ancestry.com and the connection with like 23andMe? Did I tell you about this?
So no, but I know 23andMe I think was selling or going bankrupt, or there's something weird there that like people's data was potentially going to just be released out or sold off basically.
Sold, right.
So yeah, I'm aware of that, but not in your realm.
So hearing that story made me quickly remember that I had sent away a birthday gift I was given for Ancestry.com. You know, you swab, send your DNA, they tell you where you're from. It's like, okay, that's like really cool. But I hadn't checked in on it in a while, and this 23andMe thing came up, and I was like, oh, well, if I'm not interacting with that data that I have on Ancestry.com, like, why do they need it, right? So I went through the process of like having them delete my genetic data from their banks. I closed out that account and I was like, that feels really good. And then this Bitdefender thing, so I was like, okay, I may want to be a little more aware of the information and data that I have out on the internet just randomly. So that's been something I've been working on recently. And then my seed here for the week, boy, I cannot wait. I've been saving money. I'm stuffing it in the bed. Giving it to the bank any way I can. I've been saving money for a nurse bot to take care of me and put me to bed. So all of my like needs, like household needs, can be taken care of. I'm very bearish, you could say, or no, I guess it's bullish. I'm very bullish on nurse bots. So I've been shacking it away, and I'm very much looking forward for them to be my primary healthcare when I'm older.
I am not aware of nurse bots, but I can imagine the concept. I don't know if that's a euphemism for anything, if you're looking to buy a Roomba, or if you're just thinking long term 401k, a Roth IRA savings and whatnot,
No,
and
no, I'm
then
I'm talking about a humanoid robot that will physically lift me up and put me into bed.
I hope for myself that I'm never to that point. If I get to that point, that I'm not capable of taking care of myself, I'm probably out. But I guess if you can still game from that bed, then maybe there's a reason. But that sounds like an interesting thing. Where did you come across this nurse bot idea? Is this one of the articles that you read about the future of healthcare?
Yeah, so my understanding of like the next 10 years is going to be them working with the human form factor, and once industrial and commercial use is, kind of locked in and we kind of integrate that into our society, the very next thing will be, they call it unstructured work, which is like work in the household. And based on what I'm hearing about the structured work that goes in it on like factory floors and warehouses, the work that robots are already doing, like there's a whole bunch of factories that are employing robots like right now in the world.
But
So
they're not
as that,
humanoid
but they will
robots.
be. The
Okay.
whole world is set up for like this form factor, the human form.
Fair.
So moving forward, once you get out of like the bender bots and the lifter bots and all of these things, the next environment will be in the home for unstructured work. So I'm very much looking forward to those developments. I don't care about how many boxes you can stack. I wanna know how gingerly they will be able to tuck me in bed at night. And from what I'm hearing, we're only like 15, maybe 20 years out from this. So by the
That
time I'm elderly and need to be gaming from a bed, these robots are gonna be way ahead of their time, and I'm just gonna have I'm going to live out my elderly years with a robotic companion.
I think that the estimation on times of these things are probably a little ambitious. Who knows with all the new AI kind of things that have been coming out, but I I would be surprised if in 15 years we're seeing an influx of nurse robots. If they make them, just make them look like nurse or which it's not Nurse Jenny. I think it's Officer Jenny in Pokemon. Um,
Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy.
Nurse Joy, that's who I'm looking for. So just make them look like Nurse Joy. Very comforting, but overall, that's an interesting rabbit hole to go down. I'm kind of curious. I might have to look into the proclivities of some of these robots that they're coming out with.
It's a brave new world we're entering into. But Aaron, enough about my fears. I want to know more about your rose thorn and seed. Tell me what you have going on.
So my rose thorn and seed for this week. I'll start off with my rose. Everything kind of actually I'll start off with my seed. So my seed kind of encompasses a lot of or my entirety of my cool down lap here. But we have a picnic this upcoming weekend that we're going to be having with we've invited Colleen's family, my family. So just get a bunch of people together, have a backyard barbecue, all the nieces and nephews, and just everyone running around. It should be a good time. But with that said, for my rose this week, um, one of the things that we wanted to have finished before all these folks come over to the house was this porch project that we've been doing of scraping all the paint, removing everything, and then repainting the porch. So we wrapped that up this weekend. I think. Well, we have one final coat of paint that we want to put on just to make everything look nice and glossy and even. Um, so we'll be wrapping that up, but we're pretty much done. Um, but with the preparations and figuring things out, my thorn this week is that yesterday morning, Colleen and I woke up and our refrigerator was off. It was not working whatsoever. Um, we tried the breaker was popped, so we flipped the breaker. It popped again. Then we were plugging the fridge into an extension cord, running it to a different room to see if another outlet worked, which has somewhat kept at least our frozen foods from defrosting and melting away. So the freezer we've been able to keep alive, but the fridge is not doing, or it is doing hot, not doing too well overall. It's running a little warm, and we're having to get rid of a few things. But on the bright side, we didn't have a fridge stuffed full of things. We're not losing too much. But that led to a late Sunday trip to Lowe's to order a new refrigerator, spend some money that I didn't ideally want to spend after all of my car issues over the past couple of weeks, but I guess that's just the way she goes. So we'll be getting our new refrigerator tomorrow, and kind of back to your robots and fanciness. This is a new age refrigerator. It's got a automatic water pitcher filler on the inside of the door, that you can put little fruits and stuff in the little infused thing of the water pitcher.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
it automatically fills all the way back up to the top, however much you pour out of it. Um, a couple of nice little improvements, I guess, in the refrigerator world. But yeah, that's an annoying thorn, but with the picnic this weekend or the barbecue, um, it had to be done.
Sure.
So yeah, that is my rose, thorn, and seed for this week.
Little bit stressful in that regard. You got family coming, a broken refrigerator, you got a porch to paint.
Things don't
That's
happen
a
at convenient times in life. That's what I've just figured out. The Your biggest inconveniences come at inconvenient times. So yeah, we're making it through though.
very good. I'm happy to hear you're making it through. Yeah, unfortunately, you can't just slap wheels on the refrigerator, get two birds with one stone action. Car and a fridge. Sell your car, keep the fridge.
I mean, that might be pretty cold to drive, so I think
Sure.
I'll keep those separate for the meantime at least. But yeah, that does wrap out the cool down lap for us this week and brings us to the end of the episode. So if you all enjoyed that, I hope you did. We did. It's always fun being here talking motorsports and life to you all. But we really appreciate you spending your time with us.
Make sure to join us in 2 weeks' time after the next Formula One Grand Prix. We'll be here live on Twitch the Monday after. New episodes drop the following Tuesday. So let your friends and family know just the dopest Formula One content out there, on offer. So thank you very much for listening, and peace out, everyone.
So yeah.